And we're just waiting right now for everyone to get on. We've had people in the waiting room. We have little Jimmy Buffett in the background. My favorite, by the way. um, so we'll just wait a few more seconds here and go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Tuesday Talks for today. We are thrilled to have with us Tara Jensen. I'm Kimberly Dudek, CEO and co-founder of the Public Policy Institute of the Rockies, and I'm here today with my co-founder and CFO, Sophie Moon. We're hosting these Tuesday Talks to further the Public Policy Institute of the Rockies mission of bringing attention to underaddressed issues in Montana and letting you know some of the people working on them, as well as giving you the opportunity to learn how to get involved and ask questions you want answered. These talks are recorded, and attendees can post questions in the chat box or the Q&A box. We'll try to answer as many as possible. We also have this released as a podcast format later for those who can't attend, and it is on MCAT channel 189, so people can catch it there too, on Tuesdays at 8:30 and Fridays at 6:30. So thank you for joining us today. Welcome, everyone. Today, we are thrilled to have with us Tara Jensen. We were supposed to have Heather O'Loughlin today from the Montana Budget and Policy Institute, but Heather is stuck at the legislature right now at the Capitol, and her co-director, Tara Jensen, has graciously agreed to step in and will be our guest today from the Montana Budget and Policy Center. So we're thrilled to have Tara with us. To give you a little bit of information about Tara, Tara helps guide the organization as co-director to ensure its position as a leading voice shaping the debate around budget priorities. She works with the media, foundation, policymakers, and advocates to build the reputation of NBC as a respected source of information and analysis on state budget and fiscal issues. For more than 15 years, Tara has worked in state government and for a number of nonprofit organizations in Montana, including the University of Montana Foundation, and as the executive director for CASA, which is the Court-Appointed Special Advocates of Missoula. She also served as the communications director for the Montana Office of Public Instruction and as the deputy chief clerk at the Montana House of Representatives. She has a master's degree in public administration from the University of Montana. Welcome, Tara. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here, and people are looking forward to hearing what you have to say about money today. So before we get started, why don't you just kind of give us just a couple minutes, just like a short brief, tell us your story and how you got to where you are.
Well, I grew up in Conrad, Montana, daughter of a teacher. My mom worked at the local bank, and I ended up going to the University of Montana for my undergrad. I had always had an interest in politics. I found history and current affairs really interesting and kind of geeked out at them from a young age. I got to be a page at the Helena legislature when I was in high school and kind of got the government bug very early. So I, over the course of my career, have worked on a variety of campaigns, worked for various government agencies, and a variety of nonprofits. I lived in DC for a little bit and worked for a number of members of Congress out there. Eventually I decided to kind of switch up and went into more of the nonprofit sector, ran CASA of Missoula, and then got this opportunity to come work for the Montana Budget and Policy Center, which allowed me to kind of get back into the government game a little bit, and the legislature, which I find really fascinating and love to, no matter how it all turns out, watching public interact with their government is something I find valuable and always very fascinating. So I kind of got to get back in to the policy game, the legislative game with this current role.
Well, we're thrilled you're there. So tell us about the work you're doing at your current position and why it's so important.
Yeah, well, so the Montana Budget and Policy Center has been around since about 2008. We are primarily focused on public policy dealing with the state budget and tax code, and then how that impacts a wide range of public policies, from Medicaid expansion to housing to childcare to pre-K, really a wide range of parts of state government. And really, the state budget impacts all of us, but in very different ways. And our role is really important. We have during this session, we have a team this time of 12, and they're tracking all sorts of parts of the state budget. There are lots of spreadsheets involved from different parts of our team. We track the budget and we track a wide range of bills. We analyze what's happening with the budget and provide recommendations, and also to the tax code, because it's the two sides of the balance sheet. The budget isn't much without the revenue side of things. And then we try to break that down into ways that the public can understand, that we can help elevate voices of its impacts, and help people get involved so they can make their voices heard on how they want their legislators to vote on any number of budget concerns or tax bills or other public policy.
Well, wow, 12 people. So tell us about kind of the structure of your agency so people even know when you say that what you guys do.
Yeah, so we have we're a co-director model, so we have two directors. Myself and Heather O'Loughlin, the one who was supposed to be on. We have a team of researchers, and we have some legislative aides who help us track the budget and different public policies. And we have some communication staff to think about how we're getting our message out there, how we're reaching people to make our positions known, and to help people get more information so they can get better engaged. So yeah, 12 people. Normally we're a team of about 10 outside of the legislative session. And yeah, we work on a wide range of policies during the session. And then we do a lot of research outside of the session, and think about how to dig into the data and build public policies from there.
So what are some of the issues that you've been spending your time on?
Yeah, this session, a lot. We are tracking a wide range of bills. Really this time with the ARPA money coming in, the federal rescue plan funds, we're basically, the legislature is basically doing two budgets. So that has been a big undertaking, kind of tracking what's happening with those and providing input. There have been a wide range of tax bills out there, so we're spending a lot of time there. There's been a number of attacks on the social safety net. So we've been tracking a lot of those bills, like Senate Bill 100 that was tabled yesterday. We are working on some housing legislation, and then a number of issues related to policies in Indian country. Specifically, there's a couple bills related to tribal sovereignty and taxation that we've been tracking and making our voices heard on.
So what kind of an impact do you feel like you've been able to make in your role?
Yeah, I mean, over the past couple of years, so I've been at this job since 2014. So we've worked on a number of legislative sessions. So, some big ones in 2015 and 2019 was passing Medicaid expansion, and then the reauthorization in 2019. We work with some amazing coalition partners from all over the state to kind of build a groundswell to help shape and get the public support to pass big pieces of legislation like Medicaid expansion. In 2017, we worked with a lot of those same partners to pass an earned income tax credit in Montana. So there's some of the big ones. Then, of course, doing our best over the years to defeat irresponsible tax cuts, because it is through a healthy state budget that we can invest in communities and invest in the families, that makes Montana everything we want it to be now and everything we think it can be in the future, because it can be so much more when we do a good job of investing in families and communities. This session has been tough. A number of bills that we would not like to go through there's been attack on a range of communities of color, LGBT community. It's definitely been a difficult session. We're fortunate that some are getting tabled, like Senate Bill 100 yesterday, which is an attack on Medicaid, SNAP, and CHIP. So that was tabled yesterday. Although there have been a lot of bills that have come back from the dead, so nothing's done until sine die. So we're definitely keeping an eye on some things.
All right, so you talked a little specifics. Tell us some more about the budget proposals in the legislature and the bills that are going on and what those mean for Montanans.
Yeah, I mean, so it looks like I think this week the House is going to reject the Senate amendments for House Bill 2 and House Bill 632. It's funny. I've been doing this for so long that old numbers are popping back into my vernacular, and I've been using numbers for different bills from previous sessions, so I have to be really careful. But the ARPA money and House Bill 2 will be rejected and probably sent into conference committee next week. So we're definitely tracking those and
Okay,
to
before
see.
you go on,
Yes,
tell people what that means when they
the
reject
ARPA.
an amendment,
Oh, there you
then it
go.
goes to a conference committee, because those
Yeah,
are kind of terms of art
I,
there that regular citizens don't have any need to know.
there you go. I geeked out a little bit. I was trying hard not to, but I slipped into it anyway. So bills will pass. Something starts with an HB, it started in the House. If it starts with an SB, it started in the Senate. So a bill will go through one House, get passed over to the other House. The other House can make amendments and change the legislation. And then after it passes, so a bill started in the House, so House Bill 2 started in the House, they do all of their work on it. It goes over to the Senate. The Senate in Senate Finance and Claims made amendments and different changes to House Bill 2 and 632. I just did it again, 632. And then it goes back to the House, and the House can accept those amendments and pass the bill as is, and they agree, because both the House and Senate have to have identical language for a bill to pass and go on to the governor for a signature. So the House can accept the amendments, or the House can reject the amendments, and then that bill will then go into a conference committee with members of both the House and the Senate, and then they continue to work on the bill from there. And if they come to an agreement, that bill will go back onto both floors for concurrence. So again, it has to be the exact same language. So back to House Bill 2 and 632, the ARPA funds. It appears that that will go into conference committee probably next week. So it's we'll be paying close attention to what happens in those conference committees and how those two very big bills shape up.
All right. What do you want listeners to understand about these issues, like right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, those are large bills, big spending bills. But also, we work a lot on the other side of what I was saying, the other side of the docket, and the tax bills. And there's been a range of tax proposals, tax cuts that primarily are benefiting the wealthiest. Some are still alive, some have been tabled. Senate Bill 159, which was tabled last week, that is one we kept a close eye on. It reduces the top income tax rate down from 6.9 to 6.5. It would have cost the state about $84 million a year when implemented. And that was a big concern of ours. It primarily benefited the wealthy, did little for people who are at the lower end of the income scale. And also $84 million, you think of what the state could do, the forward-thinking investments that we could make, or filling budget holes from the budget cuts of 2017. So that was a bill of big concern to us. It was tabled last week. We'll, of course, keep an eye on it. It looks like right now Senate Bill 399 is the one that's moving. It had a hearing this morning. It's a complicated bill, and it is a massive overhaul of our tax structure in Montana. It still lowers that top income tax rate. It eliminates, I think, 17 different tax credits, and it really, without a lot of examination of their efficiency or usage or how they're being applied, it will cost about $40 million, which is still a huge price tag. It's less than 159, but it's still a very big price tag. And that still is funds that, at a time when we're trying to recover from both the kind of physical and emotional parts of COVID, but also kind of the resulting economic impacts from that. Like, those are funds that can be used to really shore up communities and shore up families so we can all recover together better. So 339 has also been a rushed tax policy. It was first hearing was just on April 1st. Normally a major overhaul of our tax system would have had months of debate and hearings and maybe even had an interim study, and that's just not what we're seeing here. So it's a bill we're very concerned about. And also because it is so complicated, about 1 in 5 Montana taxpayers will see their taxes increased due to Senate Bill 399. So it's a big concern.
So I just want to go back a little bit. You said it has a $40 million price tag. Is that $40 million that is cut out of the state budget every year or every 2 years?
I believe it's every year, but
Okay.
now that you just asked me that, I just questioned myself. But I think it's a yearly $40 million.
Well, we'll go with your assumption
Yeah.
then. So just so people understand, if $40 million is taken out of the state budget, in your understanding, does that mean that we have to cut different services and other things to a tune of $40 million because there won't be money there anymore?
Yeah, it's just there's less state revenue. And Kim, you definitely served on the appropriations committee. You know what it's like to try to figure out how do we fund all of the things, right? From schools to infrastructure to the justice system. How do we fund all of these things? And $40 million is a lot, and it can be used. And that's just the stuff we are investing in now. That's not the forward-thinking things, the things we're not investing in yet. Like we don't have paid family medical leave in Montana. We don't have universal pre-K. Like there's a lot of things that we need state revenue for, and with less, there's just less funds to support the programs we already have, and not be able to be really forward thinking about it.
And just a couple of examples. I seem to recall that there was huge salary increases for some of the governor's staff that he's brought on, as well as like a cut to covering children's school lunch so that all children who go to school can eat. Are those kind of some of the things that now, instead of the money going to, feed children, is going to pay for Governor Gianforte's staff, and now there'll be even less money? Is that what we're looking at?
I guess I haven't paid quite as much attention to the salary piece so much as kind of like the big things like, uh, the school-based mental health services for kids. There's a number of things that, the services for our friends and family who have disabilities. There's so many holes that we could be filling from 2017 for senior and long-term care. Again, pre-K, like making childcare more affordable, accessible. Housing, we have a huge affordable housing. Every county in Montana has an issue with affordable housing. People cannot afford homes, and it's at differing levels. But the state needs to be doing more to be proactive, so that our people can afford to live here and afford to kind of live the lives we want everyone to be able to live.
All right, thank you. Thanks for answering those questions. So, what has been probably the most challenging thing about the work that you've been doing?
In general, the state budget's complicated. Tax policy is complicated. Some people find them boring. I don't. Although I will say I've learned a lot since taking this job. Tax policy definitely wasn't my jam before working at the Montana Budget Policy Center. But I think breaking them down so that people can understand and see themselves in the state budget and see themselves in what tax policy means and see how that impacts their community. So it is challenging to kind of break it down and to be accurate with the numbers, but with making those numbers sound real. So we work hard to try to do some social math and put complicated numbers into tangible ways that everybody can understand and get their head around, and then decide if that makes sense for how they want their communities invested in. So yeah, definitely the breaking down the geekiness can be a challenge.
How can people become involved with what you're doing?
They can definitely follow us on all of the social medias on Twitter and Facebook. We try to keep our website really updated and try to publish pretty regular blogs where we break down some of the bills happening. And then after the session, we break down a lot of just what's happening in the public and things that are popping up in the public eye. We do have much more detailed reports. We try not to make them too long. We try really hard not to make them too long and too involved. But for people who want to dig in a little bit and create a depth of knowledge within themselves on different areas of public policy, so that they can better inform their community and have more confidence in talking to their local or state elected officials on how they want Montana state budget and how our communities should receive investment from the state.
All right, so what's your contact information if people want to reach out?
Yeah, so montanabudget.org is a great place to start. You can link to everything right from there. And on there, we have all of our staff listed. So you can see if you have questions about housing, who on our staff would work on housing issues, be able to answer some of those questions. We have people who specialize in tax policy, people who specialized in food security. So all of our staff is listed there, and you can reach out to anybody there, and we will help answer your questions. And also definitely follow us on social media, and we'll pop things up that we think are interesting and things that we feel like the public really needs to have on their radar so that they can get engaged.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for answering all those. I'm going to turn this over to Sophie now, and she's going to ask some questions that people have been posting and want to know the answers to. Go ahead, Sophie.
Great.
Thanks. And thanks again, Tara, for joining us today. If anyone has any questions they haven't posted yet, go ahead and throw them in the chat or the Q&A section, and we can make sure that your question gets asked. First question from one of our participants. So far, what does it look like for the distribution of funds from the American Rescue Plan in terms of what funds go to businesses, cities, and education?
Well, I might have to follow up with you on that. It just had some some action, and I have not been able to dig in too much. We will be posting something. We are working on the breakdown right now. We will be posting something on our website, hopefully later today or tomorrow. So we'll be able to dig into that a little bit more. So I would encourage you to go to our website tomorrow, I hope, and we can do a better breakdown. There is a breakdown on our website right now, but that is how the bill came out of the House. So we will, at least you can see how the bill came out of the House, but it's had some heavy amendments in the Senate. So I encourage you to check back tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow, maybe Thursday, and you can have some more detail there. I'm sorry, I don't have that at the top of my fingers.
No, totally. We appreciate knowing where to get that information, and we made sure to post your guys' website. So if folks want to go on there and keep in touch that way, that sounds like a good idea. Our next participant asks, it seems that much of what the Trumpian Republicans in our state legislature do is extortion of funds from the middle and lower class. Is there a chance that Republicans will refuse federal funds to our state for necessary services? And if so, will we see a lot of lawsuits against them and Gianforte?
That's a big question. It does not seem like right now, it looks like the way that 632 is shaping up is that it looks like we're going to use and utilize the federal funds coming our way. We'll see what happens in conference committee. There's always, anytime, you're not fully investing in a lot of DPHHS, you're risking federal funds there. And that's a lot of what happened in 2012 was when we reduced those budgets, it resulted in the loss of federal matching funds, which for DPHHS can range to as high as a 9-to-1 match. So there's always the risk. We're not super worried about that right now at this point in time with the ARPA funding.
Great, thank you for that. This next question is very particular. So this person is asking, how is it that Montana Department of Transportation budget requests get less scrutiny than other departments?
I do not know. Kim actually can probably do a little bit. Some of this is based off subcommittee. I don't know that I know the answer to that.
Yeah, I would just say it deals with the subcommittee and whoever has a personal axe to grind about different issues. Those are usually when you get a lot of budget scrutiny. If the law doesn't require it, it's all personality.
And I'm not sure how much of that also is like House Bill 2 stuff or not, or federal funds. So I think that there's a number of probably things at play there.
Yeah, definitely. Next question, does Montana Budget and Policy Center also deal with energy issues?
Not really. That's not really our wheelhouse. We try to provide support to our coalition partners when we can, but that's not really an area we do that. We do a little bit with like low income energy assistance programs, but that's about it.
Great, thanks for that. This next question is probably a good opportunity for some like government education here. Which is great. How are conference committee members determined? Who serves? What's the party breakdown?
Yeah, so my guess is, and actually, I used to do them. back in the Wayback Machine. The leadership controls the appointment of the conference committees. My guess is it'll be on each, Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, it'll be 2 Republicans from each house and 1 Democrat from each house. And then they'll go together and form the conference committee that way. But they are generally appointed by the Speaker and the Speaker of the House and President of the Senate, unless they have some other kind of internal processes that they've established.
Great. Right now, I don't see, oh, there's another question here. And if folks, this is kind of like last call, right? So if you have some more questions, throw them in right now so we can make sure that Tara answers them before she gets back to the rest of her busy day. This question, there are a lot of issues that are getting lots of recognition and for good reasons. LGBTQ issues, the budget. What are some issues that you are seeing in the legislature right now that aren't getting enough coverage in your opinion?
Ooh, that is an interesting question. I would say it's there's a kind of some of the forward-thinking progressive policies, like thinking out more, like paid leave and some of those kind of like how do we get to the next level of supporting individuals and families in Montana. But I will say, the press corps is really big this time of the session. I've never seen anything like it, and I've been doing this for a really long time in one way or another. So it is exciting to see so many issues being covered and actually getting a decent amount of scrutiny. So I think that that's really positive, and it's I think it's a great place for Montana to be headed in, where there's a lot of opportunity for sunlight on what's happening at our with our government officials and elected officials. So yeah, I think I'm surprised how much is being covered. But yeah, there's always more.
Totally. We have a few more questions here. One of them has a little bit of a commentary here in the front. I'm very worried about the Republicans taking funds from public schools to fund private schools like Gianforte's private religious school so he and his friends can get a hefty tax refund. What are the chances of that happening in our state?
I don't know where that bill is exactly today. I did not go through all of my bill status sheets. There's so many to track. Normally I have a better handle. There are so many bills to track this time around. But I think from my understanding that bill's making its way through, unfortunately.
Great. Next question. How might the rescue plan money offset tax cuts?
Well, that's a good question. Technically, they're not supposed to, but I think that we'll see how the kind of the math plays out. Yeah, I think that it's just a good question. We're just kind of waiting to see. We, of course, from our perspective, think it's to use kind of this infusion of funds at a historic level that we could really be transformative in how we think about investment and how we can really get ahead. Like, this is a rare opportunity to do something really cool for our communities and for our state, and to use any of them to for tax cuts that primarily benefit the wealthiest is really squandering an opportunity both now and like those are ongoing tax cuts. Those aren't stopping in anytime soon. So, we think it's definitely a squandered opportunity and hope that that's not how it shapes out.
Great. Those are the end of the questions from participants. I really appreciate you, taking the time to answer those and kind of that popcorn style. I think it's
do my best
to be able to engage. Yeah. I'm going to hand it back over to Kim for the final piece today.
Great. Thanks, Sophie. Thank you, Tara, for answering those. So now we're going to go ahead and ask, it's our final 4 questions, just intended to let people get to know you a little bit more on a personal level. So first, what is a podcast you're listening to now that you would recommend to others?
So I came up with 2. One is called Maintenance Phase. It's really interesting. It's basically kind of circles back to a lot of health and diet things from back in the 90s when I was growing up, like the presidential fitness test. It's really fascinating to look back on some of like the diet trends and some of the harmful things that we just didn't really realize was happening. So it's a fun podcast. I've learned a lot. And also I'm a gardener and I cannot wait to just get my hands in the dirt. So I've been listening to Epic Gardening podcast to provide new tips for what I'm going to do in my yard this year.
Oh, that's great. Have you planted anything yet?
I've got a bunch of seedlings going, so we're getting there.
Yeah, we have got some stuff going too. Our peas are like starting to go crazy. All right. So who is your favorite singer?
So I told you earlier that I think the job I'd be the worst at is DJ. So I'll just say during the legislative session, I've reconnected with the Hamilton soundtrack. That's really kind of what's kind of been my background music.
Nice. All right. Where's your favorite place to go in Montana?
Glacier.
Where at Glacier?
Oh, all of it. Sometimes I like to be out in Glacier and sometimes I like to do a tourist trap. So it reminds me of we would take the East Glacier Way from Conrad and do like the water slides. I like taking my nephews there. Hopefully I can do that this year. And just like some of those fun touristy things, but then also get back into nature and, go on some big hikes. And I like everything about kind of the Flathead area. It's fun.
Yeah, it's real nice. All right. What's the best advice you were ever given?
When I started my first job, like first real job, big kid job, I don't remember who said it, but they just said, tackle the things you can do really well so you build some confidence, like do the two things that you can do really well, and then save the things you're kind of scared at until you've built up a little confidence and then tackle those later.
Nice.
So I give that advice too, because I think it's a good way to kind of get started in a new role.
Well, that's really good advice. All right. Well, thank you for the work you're doing and for taking the time to talk with us today. So thank you so much, Tara.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So to everyone who's listening today, thanks for listening. We're hosting these talks to provide an opportunity for people to hear from others and organizations in our state and learn how you can become involved in shaping your community. These are recorded and released on podcasts later, wherever you listen, and they're also broadcast on Missoula Community Access Television, Channel 189, on Tuesdays at 8:30 and Fridays at 6:30. So if you want to reach us, you can reach us at publicpolicyinstituteoftherockies.com, on Facebook at Public Policy Institute of the Rockies, Twitter at Policy Rockies, Instagram at PPI of the Rockies, and email at info@ppir.org. All right, thanks everyone for attending, and let's keep moving Montana forward together.